Usually, when we think about a history assignment, there's this expectation of like absolute static precision.
Right, yeah.
You read a textbook, you memorize a list of dates, you sit down with your number 2 pencil, and you just fill in the little bubbles on a multiple choice test. It treats history as something completely sealed off.
Oh, absolutely. It's categorized as this
Yep.
binary state, right? Like
Yeah.
an event happened in 1492 or it didn't.
Exactly.
It's clean, it's
Yeah.
easily graded on a rubric, and it is just securely locked in the past.
But then you step into the world of place-based education and indigenous knowledge systems, and suddenly that bubble sheet is completely
Yeah,
useless.
you could throw it out.
Right. We're looking at a landscape of learning that requires a total rewiring of how we view knowledge, science, and, our relationships to the people and the places right around us. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
The mission today is tailored specifically for you. So whether you're a middle school student figuring out your local environment, an educator designing a curriculum, or just a community member, we are untacking Alaska Cultural Standard A3.
And the specific performance indicator that we're analyzing from that standard today is this: students acquire and pass on the traditions of their community through oral and written history.
Which, at first glance, that sounds like your standard run-of-the-mill school project, right?
Right. Read a book about traditions, write an essay, hand it in.
Exactly. But digging into the sources we've gathered today, it reveals that this standard is demanding something entirely different. It fundamentally shifts how we define science, how we view data, and how we actually operate in the physical world outside our windows.
Yeah, to truly grasp the scope of this standard, we have to kind of dismantle what it means to acquire and pass on knowledge in the first place.
Right, because usually that just means memorizing stuff.
Exactly. In Western educational models, acquiring knowledge often just means memorization. You read a chapter, you repeat the facts back. But in the context of Alaska Native knowledge systems, acquiring knowledge is an active, really immersive process.
So it's not passive at all.
Not at all. It means learning through careful listening, active participation, keen observation, and, like, above all else, relationship.
I'm thinking about the difference between reading a recipe for bread online versus actually standing in the kitchen and cooking with your grandmother.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Because the online recipe gives you the exact measurements, right? It tells you to add 2 cups of flour, bake at 350 degrees, but it completely leaves out the feel of the dough.
Yeah, it leaves out the way she, adjusts the hydration based on the humidity in the room that day.
Right. Or just the muscle memory of the kneading process.
And that tactile lived experience is the literal definition of acquire under this standard.
Mm.
The sources actually provide a really profound look at this through Inupiat and Yupik traditions.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
We'll consider how a young person learns to navigate sea ice, or, say, load a hunting boat. They do not sit in a classroom and listen to a theoretical lecture about buoyancy or center of gravity.
Right, because theoretical physics on a whiteboard isn't going to keep a skin boat from capsizing in the Arctic Ocean.
Exactly. Those are the actual stakes we're talking about here. So instead of a lecture, that young person learns by quietly observing expert hunters. And we're talking about doing this for years before ever stepping into a leadership role themselves.
Oh, wow. Just years of observation.
Yeah, it's a highly rigorous long-term pedagogy of observation. A child might watch really simple actions first, like how a specific knot is tied or where the heavy equipment is placed in the boat.
And then it builds from there.
Right. Gradually, through years of silent observation, they begin to internalize incredibly complex variables. They learn how the exact distribution of weight affects the boat's balance in rough water, or how the vessel responds to different current speeds.
So they're internalizing the physics organically, like they're acquiring the knowledge physically and environmentally rather than just intellectually reading it.
They're absorbing the entire ecosystem
Right.
of that action.
Yeah.
And then, the second half of the standard is to pass on that knowledge.
Which, again, doesn't mean just giving a presentation to the class.
No, it doesn't mean repeating the information to a teacher for a grade. It means preserving and sharing that knowledge responsibly. It means acting as a reliable, accurate culture bearer for the next generation.
Because the community's survival literally depends on that accuracy.
Exactly.
Which I think completely redefines the word tradition, because we so often use that word to describe a relic, like an antique clock sitting on a mantelpiece, right?
Right, something dusty and old.
Yeah. But because acquiring this knowledge requires such deep observation and continuous application, a tradition isn't a frozen artifact. It's a living, breathing practice.
It really is. Traditions encompass a massive spectrum of life. The sources outline that they include stories, skills, values, celebrations, foodways, language, art, music, seasonal activities, and the specific ways of caring for people or a place.
And the operative word there is living.
Yes, they adapt. They might pause during certain eras, they return, or they change entirely as communities respond to new environmental or, social circumstances.
But wait, let me push back a little here. Human memory is notoriously fallible. Think about the telephone game we all played as kids.
Oh, sure.
You whisper a sentence into someone's ear, and by the time it goes around the circle, the story has completely changed and lost its original meaning.
Yeah, the classic telephone game critique.
Right. So if we live in a modern world with digital archives, cloud storage, and exhaustive textbooks, how can oral history possibly be considered rigorous empirical data if it relies entirely on human memory?
So that telephone game analogy is a really common Western critique of oral history, but it entirely misunderstands the mechanics of how indigenous oral transmission actually works.
How so?
Well, the telephone game is casual and it's solitary. It's one person whispering to one other person. But oral history is communal, and it's subjected to intense, ongoing peer review.
Oh, peer review, like in a scientific journal.
Basically, yeah. When an elder tells a story or shares environmental data in a community setting, there are other elders present who also hold that knowledge.
Yeah.
If a detail is skewed, the community corrects it right there.
Oh, I see. So it's not just one person remembering something in isolation.
Exactly. The sources emphasize repeatedly that oral history and traditional ecological knowledge are the result of thousands of years of cross-checked longitudinal data collection.
So it's essentially a parallel system of scientific data tracking. It's just stored and transmitted through narrative instead of spreadsheets.
Yes, and that narrative format provides something written records often completely strip away.
Like the context.
Right. Written history, things like letters, journals, transcripts, maps, it's vital for preserving static records. But writing can unintentionally remove the relational context.
Oh, definitely. You lose the tone of voice.
You lose the tone, you remove the physical gestures of the speaker, it erases the specific environment where the story was told, and you just lose the lived experience behind the words. Oral history preserves the human element right alongside the raw data.
And I see how that allows a tradition to remain a living practice. The human element allows it to adapt to whatever the immediate circumstances are.
And a master class in this adaptation is traditional Yupik navigation.
Oh, tell me about this.
So in the Kuskokwim River region, Yupik hunters navigate across the vast, featureless tundra during long, dark winter nights. And they're not relying solely on modern GPS, which, can easily fail in extreme cold.
Right, batteries die fast out there.
Exactly. So they use a complex system involving the stars, the direction of frozen grass, and the physical patterns of snow waves.
Wait, snow waves? I'm picturing ocean swells, but frozen. Is that right?
That is essentially how they function, yeah. The wind creates permanent directional ridges and dunes in the snow, sometimes referred to as sastrugi.
Okay, sastrugi.
Right. And a hunter can use the orientation of these wind-carved snow formations as a physical compass when visibility drops to zero in a whiteout.
That is incredible.
And it gets better. When the sky is clear, their mathematical system for measuring the stars is astonishingly precise. To check the position of the Gamma star in the Tintorea constellation, a hunter uses a specific sequence of hand spans and 3 to 4 finger rotations to measure the star's height above the horizon.
So they're literally turning the human hand into an astronomical sextant.
Yes, it has applied physics, geometry, and astronomy happening in real time, adapting to the immediate environmental conditions.
Wow.
And this is exactly why the sources strongly warn against treating traditions as just costumes to put on once a year for a school assembly.
Or like simple crafts or classroom decorations.
Right. They are survival-critical systems of science and community care.
But, because this data is so highly localized and survival critical, it brings up a massive ethical dilemma, I think.
Oh, definitely. The ethics of knowledge.
Yeah, because you and I, we are so steeped in the internet age where information is just open source. It's meant to be shared, scraped by algorithms, and published by everyone, for everyone.
Right. If it's on the internet, it's free real estate.
Exactly. But if a student is suddenly exposed to this depth of traditional ecological knowledge, they might assume they can just throw it into a PowerPoint and publish it online for the world to see.
And the sources are incredibly firm on why that absolutely cannot happen. This introduces the concepts of free, prior, and informed consent, abbreviated as FPIC and knowledge sovereignty.
Knowledge sovereignty.
Yes. As a student, a teacher, or a researcher, you do not automatically have permission to collect, analyze, or publish every tradition you come across. Some knowledge is highly restricted.
So it's functioning more like a family patent or like a secure medical records. Just
Uh-huh.
because you have the technical ability to record it doesn't mean you have the legal or ethical right to broadcast it.
That's a great way to put it. Some knowledge is private, it's sacred, ceremonial, or family-specific. It might only be appropriate for particular people to hear, or it might only be shared during specific seasons or in specific settings.
Like, what kind of knowledge are we talking about here?
Well, for instance, a student should never publish the precise geographic coordinates of rare medicinal plants, or draw maps of a specific family's historical harvest areas without explicit, community-approved consent.
Because I imagine the boundary is so strict because historically, treating indigenous knowledge as open source usually just meant it was being extracted and exploited by outsiders.
Unquestionably. And the sources point to a glaring historical example to demonstrate exactly why these ethical protections are so vital.
What's the example?
The 1950s Arctic Aeromedical Laboratory thyroid study.
Oh, I haven't heard of this.
So during the Cold War, the military was highly interested in how humans adapted to extreme cold. To study this, researchers administered radioactive iodine-131 to 102 Alaska natives.
Wait, what? They were dosing citizens with radioactive isotopes?
Yes. And they were doing it without informed, linguistically accessible consent. The individuals involved did not have the medical risks explained to them in their own languages, nor did they understand the true purpose of the study.
That is horrific.
It was. It was extractive research done entirely to support outside military interests, with zero regard for the community's well-being or bodily autonomy.
I mean, that completely shifts the conversation around consent. When we talk about asking an elder for permission to share a story, it is not just about academic politeness.
No, not at all.
It is about protecting human rights, preventing exploitation, and honoring intellectual property.
Exactly. Indigenous communities retain perpetual ownership and control over how their knowledge is represented and utilized. Local elders and culture bearers hold the ultimate authority on what is taught in a classroom, what gets recorded, and what is kept private.
Which means respecting the boundaries of knowledge also requires you to respect the specific geography of that knowledge.
Yes, geography is huge here.
Because if these traditions are essentially localized survival data, a curriculum designer trying to build a generic one-size-fits-all workbook is going to fail the moment that book leaves its original zip code.
And the academic term for that failure is pan-indigenization.
Pan-indigenization.
Yeah, it's the dangerous mistake of presenting all Alaska Native cultures as a monolith. I mean, Alaska's ecological and cultural diversity is staggering.
Oh, it's massive.
You have the Inupiaq, Yupik, Athabascan, Tlingit, Haida, Alutiiq, Unangax, and each group has developed completely distinct linguistic structures, tool designs, and ecological management systems entirely tailored to their specific environment.
Right, so think about a beautifully designed lesson sequence built around Tlingit salmon clans.
Okay, sure.
It explores the temperate rainforests of Southeast Alaska, the specific cedar tools carved by local artisans, and the dynamics of the coastal ocean currents.
A great lesson for that specific area.
Exactly. But if a teacher takes that exact lesson and drops it into an Athabascan classroom located in the boreal forests of interior Alaska, it completely unravels.
It does. Because the physical environment in the interior dictates entirely different traditions. The language is different, the geographical references are different, the winter ice dynamics are completely separate from coastal tides.
You can't just swap them out.
No. If an educator does not adapt the curriculum to the local reality, they are flattening the culture and stripping away the empirical validity of the knowledge. Fulfilling Standard A3 demands looking at the specific soil, the specific rivers, and the specific people right outside the local classroom window.
Which brings us to, I think, the ultimate role of the student in all of this.
Right.
We've talked extensively about ancient traditions, deep observation, and the authority of elders. But how do young people, the middle schoolers sitting in these classrooms today, fit into this highly localized, ethically guarded chain of knowledge?
Because they aren't just passive recipients taking notes, right?
Exactly. They have an active part to play.
They do. Young people are uniquely positioned to serve as the bridge. They are the active link between traditional ecological knowledge and modern scientific tools. Well, the sources highlight several place-based collaborative projects where students are stepping into this role right now using a methodology often called two-eyed seeing.
Oh, I love the example of the Fresh Eyes on Ice program in the sources. It shows exactly how a student synthesizes these two worlds.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. In the Fresh Eyes on Ice initiative, students are studying river ice phenology, basically tracking the seasonal freeze-up and breakup dynamics of their local rivers.
Right.
And on one hand, they're utilizing modern quantitative tools. They might use heavy-duty Kovacs ice thickness augers to drill core samples, or deploy aerial monitoring drones to track visual changes in the ice sheet over several miles.
But a drone can only tell you what the ice looks like from above.
Exactly.
It completely misses the qualitative data. So,
Yeah.
alongside the auger and the drone, these students are learning traditional, non-instrumental environmental checks from local elders.
Yes. They're learning how to test river ice safety by pounding it with a heavy piece of wood and listening to its specific tonal pitch.
Listening to the ice.
Yeah. Solid, safe ice rings with a completely different acoustic frequency than rotten, decaying ice. A drone cannot hear the pitch of the ice, and a spreadsheet cannot capture the nuance of that sound.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And so, what happens when a student combines the spreadsheet with the sound? Like, how does that synthesis actually work in practice for them?
Through practices like extensive nature journaling, students record both data sets side by side.
Oh, literally right next to each other.
Literally. They log the exact inch measurements from their ice augers, and in the next column, they record traditional ecological calendar indicators, utilizing heritage language terms to describe the specific type of ice they encounter.
That is so cool.
And the data they collect doesn't just sit in a teacher's inbox for a letter grade. They are contributing their physical measurements directly to local safety alerts and global scientific climate databases.
So they're actively passing on the tradition of caring for their place. They're keeping their neighbors safe from falling through thin ice, but they're adapting the tools they use to do it.
Exactly. It proves that carrying history forward is never just a solo academic exercise. You cannot fulfill standard A3 alone at a desk.
It's impossible.
It strictly requires relationship, permission, accuracy, context, and just profound care.
Yeah.
You cannot separate the science from the people who live in it.
Yeah.
It requires a massive shift from merely learning about a culture as an observer to actually figuring out the world alongside that culture.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Alaska Cultural Standard A3. We hope this conversation fundamentally changes how you view the sharing of community history.
It really is so much bigger than filling in a bubble on a test.
It is the recognition that knowledge is alive and that you have an active responsibility to the environment and the community you live in. And we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Yeah, think about this.
We talked about how traditions are living practices that constantly adapt to new circumstances without losing their core meaning. So if a tradition is always evolving, what will the traditions being born right now look like?
Oh, that's a great question.
Right. When today's students blend modern digital mapping, AI tools, or climate monitoring tech with the deeply held ancestral values of reciprocity and respect for the land, what will that completely new yet anciently rooted tradition look like when the next generation passes it down 100 years from now?